Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yiti from Earth to Plates, and today we are making a back to school breakfast prep video. I'm going to make lots of different things that I'm prepping to make those couple weeks of readjusting to the early schedules a little bit easier. Now in the summer we take advantage of being able to wake up a bit later, taking things a bit easier in the morning. And in the beginning of the school year, I'd like to have healthy, filling breakfast options. Now this is something that I've been doing, I think I did it the last 2 years, where I try to prep breakfast ahead of time in the freezer. I have stuff that's easy to reheat or easy to prep at the beginning of the week and have it in the fridge waiting for us, just to make those days go a little bit easier. I usually don't keep up with it for the rest of the school year, but it does give us good opportunities the first few weeks of school. Now, for myself, I've been struggling with breakfast and lunch lately, so I'm thinking that maybe some of these new things that I'm trying will be something that I enjoy and that I gravitate towards, and then maybe I'll continue doing it for myself for the future. So let me give you a breakdown of what we will be making. I have a long list of stuff. My hope is to make as much of this as possible. Doesn't mean that I will be able to manage all of it. So I want to make some tiramisu flavor overnight oats. I think I will enjoy that. Then I'm going to make a tater tot casserole, which is sort of like a breakfast special all-in-one dish. You start off with potatoes on the bottom, then you make like a omelet, like eggs with a bunch of toppings, and then top it with some more potatoes and bake it. And that is something that could be prepped in advance, put in the fridge the night before, or freeze it and then defrost it and bake it the morning of. Then I will be making zucchini chocolate chip muffins. We're going to use zucchini from the garden. That one my kid is excited for. So if they like it, it's a good way of getting some vegetables into them early in the day, which is good. Then I will be making a breakfast casserole, which is essentially just like a big scrambled egg prepped in advance. I will be making breakfast burritos. So like a wrap with scrambled eggs and toppings, rolled it up, and then we can reheat individual burritos as needed. And I want to make some garlic butter, roasted garlic butter, to just have and enjoy with like bread or bagels or stuff like that. Make a scrambled egg with it, whatever we want. And last but not least, I want to make some protein energy bowls. Right now I am shredding all the cheeses that we will need today. We're not going to use all of the cheese that I shred. Like this is mozzarella. I don't think I will be using the full block of cheese. But while I'm shredding, I might as well shred the rest of it. Now that I'm done with the mozzarella, I will also be shredding up some cheddar cheese and some pepper jack. Oh, I thought I got Colby Jack. The recipe called for Colby Jack, but pepper jack will be just fine. So I have another container here. We're going to start shredding the next cheese. I actually started off with roasting the garlic. So that's in the oven for us. Because that, I want the garlic to cool off before I put it into the butter. So we can get that out of the way. Oh, and also that is going on 400. And the rest of the stuff that needs to be baked are going to be on 350. So I wanted to get the higher oven temperature out of the way. So once we get going, we can just do whatever we want. Whatever we decide to make first can go first. Okay, I'm done with the cheeses, but I also want to shred up some of the zucchini for the zucchini muffins before we get going on the rest of our stuff. Before I start chopping the vegetables, I'm going to cover the cheeses and we're going to put it into the fridge and we'll pull it out of there as needed. Okay guys, I have all my vegetables out here that I need to prep. So let's get going. Let me see each vegetable. I'm gonna check how it needs to be cut up and then I'll cut it up. And I'll show you guys after all this is prepped how we bring all this together and make all these meals. By leaving the root end on the onion, it is easier to cut it up. It holds the onion together for the longest possible. So half of this onion will get diced and the other half will just be cut for the caramelized onions. I think I'll do the dice first. Now when I'm cutting this direction, I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm going to cut almost till the end, and that's what is going to hold it together. Now we have a beautiful dice. This half I am going to cut off the end. think I'm gonna get this going so that they can start developing color while we do the rest of the stuff. Okay, I have a pan here. I think I'm gonna use butter to caramelize it. So I'm gonna get this in the pan. About a tablespoon of butter. I'm gonna have this going low and slow on the stove top until they have nice brown caramel color on it. This I will need 2 ounces. Okay, I need to dice it, and I need 2 ounces. I'm gonna get my scale out with a little bowl. And as I dice, I'm going to measure until we have enough. Okay, that's perfect. 2 ounces. 1 tablespoon of chopped parsley. I think I'm going to chop up all of it. So some of these stems are pretty tender and young, so I can use that as well. But the ones that are thicker, I'm going to remove. This I'm going to chop up now. Oh wow, the smell. Heaven! Okay, that's a good enough chop. So let me take you over to my coffee corner, because we have to prep a little bit of coffee as well for the tiramisu overnight oats. And then we're going to start bringing everything together. Okay, I have my water in here coming up to a boil, and we need a strong brewed coffee or espresso. If you have espresso, go ahead and make that, but I'm gonna make a drip coffee. So I have here a little filter, but even with this, we still get some coffee grounds that come through. So I like to use an additional coffee filter. And the coffee that I will be using today is this right here. It's a chocolate hazelnut. I figured this flavor profile will work good with tiramisu. So I'm just going to pour some of the coffee in here. So the first initial drip of coffee is just to get, it's called blooming the coffee. So you're going to let it drip down. Drip coffee is a patience game. A lot of the things in the kitchen are patience. In the garden as well, actually. Now I'm just going to let this finish dripping, because I definitely have more than enough in here. It's a very big jar. Gonna let it finish doing its thing. I will go and we're gonna start making the zucchini muffins right now. And for this, we're gonna start with 1 large egg at room temperature. So we took it out about an hour ago. When I have big baking days, I like to use my disposable measuring cup for wet ingredients. So I'm going to put in here a 1/2 cup of oil. Quarter cup of milk. 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Vanilla, always measure by heart. No need to be exact. We're going to mix this together. Now in here, we're going to add our dry ingredients. Okay, 1.5 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and this I'm going to mix in with the flour a little bit, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to mix this together. Okay, now that this is just combined, we're going to add in the zucchini and we're going to mix it by hand. Okay, so we're going to add in the 1 cup of shredded zucchini, along with, the recipe says 1/4 cup of chocolate chips and 1/4 cup of chopped walnuts. Now, I know that my kid does not enjoy the nuts, and it's mostly for the kids. So I'm going to add 1/2 cup of the chocolate chips instead. Now we're going to mix this together until it's fully incorporated. Okay, we're going to consider this good. We're going to get filling some muffin pans so that we can bake this. Yeah, the oven is already hot enough. So now all we got to do is fill these up, and then we'll bake it for 20 to 25 minutes. I like to use my ice cream scooper to fill these. And I do about a 3/4 scoopful per muffin. Using the ice cream scooper makes it a lot easier to fill and less of a mess. Okay, this will now go into the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, for the breakfast casserole, we're going to start by sauteing the mushrooms. I'm adding about 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil in here. And I'm getting the mushrooms. We're going to let this cook down for about 5 minutes. This back here is the garlic that I roasted for the garlic butter. And over here we have the onions and mushrooms going. I decided to add the mushrooms for the breakfast burritos. So we're going to let this heat up and let it brown. Then we'll remove this and we'll start cooking down the rest of the vegetables that will go into this dish. Okay, while the vegetables are sauteing, I'm going to start with the overnight oats. And we're going to start with 1 cup of milk. And let me show you here. We got this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the filter. Let me see. I'm going to remove this. This is what it's looking like inside. Convenient thing is that this can just come out and go straight to the garbage. If you have compost, this can go in the compost. And we're going to measure out 1/4 cup. We'll do 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. 1. An easier way to remove all the maple syrup from whatever you're using to measure, spray it with oil first. And now we're going to add some vanilla. Now we're going to mix this together. And we're going to divide it between these 2 jars. You want to do it in an airtight jar or container. Now let me take you back to the stovetop because the mushrooms for the breakfast casserole is ready. So this onions, mushrooms, I keep mixing every few minutes until I feel like it's good enough. I think it needs like another 10 to 15 minutes and that'll be good. And for this is done. So we're going to remove this from the heat. Now that we've removed the mushrooms, we're going to add another 1/2 tablespoon of oil. Going to add the onions and the diced red pepper. You can use whatever color pepper you want. I think I'm also going to add the zucchini, extra zucchini from the garden. We're going to mix this and we're going to let this cook down until it's nice and tender. Okay, let's go back to our oats. So I have these rolled oats. The recipe calls for old-fashioned rolled oats. So we're going to put a half a cup of that per jar. And we're also adding 2 teaspoons of chia seeds per jar. Okay, so now we're going to make sure that all of this is mixed in and submerged in the liquid. Doesn't this look delicious already? Now this has to sit in the fridge covered for 4 to 12 hours. And before you eat it, you're supposed to make a cream cheese mixture to go on top. So I'm going to prep that all in advance as well. And I'm going to put it in a separate container in the fridge. And whenever I'm ready to eat it, I'll just take some of that cream cheese mixture and put it on top. But for now, let me close this up and put it away. So in my bowl over here, I have 1 ounce of cream cheese. The recipe calls for regular cream cheese and then whip it. And I wasn't going to buy a block of cream cheese for just 1 ounce since I'm halving it. So I am using the whipped cream cheese. And now it calls for 1 small container of Greek yogurt. So I'm just going to do half, and the other half will be used for another recipe that needs the Greek yogurt. And we're going to add another tablespoon of maple syrup in here and a little bit of vanilla as well. Okay, now I'm going to combine this and put it into a container that will then go into the fridge. And whenever we eat those oats, we will top that with this and some cocoa powder. Okay, I have a little container here. Okay, now that the vegetables are almost ready, I'm going to add in a half a cup of frozen broccoli. It should have been completely thawed. I just took it out too late. I forgot about it, honestly. It'll cook down over here. That's okay. Okay, this will just continue cooking until the broccoli is done. Because these were chopped up broccoli already, it's not going to take too long. And actually, now that this is almost ready, we can go ahead and make the egg mixture that this will go with. We're going to start by cracking 6 eggs. I'm going to break up the yolks so it'll be easier to mix up later. Now I'm going to add the remainder of our Greek yogurt. The recipe calls for a half a cup of Greek yogurt. And one of these containers is a little bit, they're saying a little bit more than half a cup. Now we're going to add a half a teaspoon of each salt, black pepper, onion powder, and garlic powder. Now we're going to whisk this together. And then I believe that our vegetables are ready. Okay, now that the vegetables are done, I had moved my mushrooms into the baking pan over here. The recipe says to make this in a 9x13 baking pan. Again, I'm making half the recipe, so I'm using a half size. Now I'm going to add the remaining vegetables into the pan. Now I can get my egg mixture, pour it over top. We're going to add a half a cup of cheddar cheese. I'm going to leave some to sprinkle over the top. We're going to give this like a little stir just to combine it all. And this will go into the oven on 350 for 45 to 55 minutes. Now this might take a little bit faster to bake, so I think I'm going to start checking it at the 30-minute mark. Okay, we're going to start making the tater tot breakfast casserole, and we're going to start by cracking 5 eggs into the bowl over here. Next we're adding a half a cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of sour cream, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, and a little bit of kosher salt. We're going to whisk this together. Now this can be baked right away. This could be prepped the night before, put into the fridge, and then baked in the morning. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep it, I'm going to freeze it, and whenever I want to make it for breakfast, I'm going to defrost it the day before, bake it the morning of. We want to mix it until it's nice and smooth. And now I'm going to add my scallions, our peppers from the jar that we diced up, 1 tablespoon of parsley. Now the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of the Colby Jack cheese, and to leave a 1/4 aside. So we're going to add a 3/4 cup in here. I'm going to prep the remaining 1/4 and leave it on the side over here. We're going to mix this together to combine. And now we can start assembling this. So I have again, the recipe calls for a 9 by 13, so I'm using a half size. I'm going to spray it with some oil spray. And it calls for tater tots. Now I couldn't find that in my store, but this was the closest thing I was able to find to that. So we're going to use this. And we're going to take about half of this and put it on the bottom. I'll just make 1 layer and we'll see how much we get. Now we're going to take our egg mixture, pour it over top. Now we're going to add some more tater tots, and we're going to press it in a little bit into the egg mixture. Now, if you're going to bake this right away, then you have to defrost the tater tots before you make this. Because I'm going to put this back in the freezer, I did not have to defrost this. Now this remaining cheese that I set aside only goes on right before baking. I think I'm going to add it now anyways, because I don't know when I'll be making this. I don't know if the cheese will still be good, if I'll still have it. So I'm going to put it on now. Since I'm not baking this right now, let me tell you how to do that. Now if you're making this right as you're about to bake it, sprinkle the cheese on top, bake it on 350 for 55 to 60 minutes until it is set. Let it rest for 10 minutes, top it with some parsley, and serve it. Now if you're making this ahead, you can either refrigerate it and bake it the next morning, or what I'm doing is I'm freezing it. Whenever I want to make it, I will take it out of the freezer the day before, let it defrost in the fridge. Before you bake it, you have to remove it from the fridge and let it sit on the counter to come to room temperature for 30 minutes. Then you're going to bake it the same way on 350 for 55 to 60 minutes. Let it rest, and then cut into it and enjoy it. We're getting ready to make the breakfast burritos. We're going to start by making the eggs. Now eggs, I like to cook up with some truffle oil. So I'm going to put some on the bottom over here. I love the flavor that it adds. Next, we're going to add 6 eggs that I have whisked together in a bowl. I whisked it all together. And we're going to cook it now. Now you don't want to cook it as well done as you would if you were eating it right away, because it's going to continue cooking as it's cooling off and when you're reheating it. And before I start mixing this, I like adding the Himalayan salt and pepper to flavor my eggs. Okay, I think I'm going to cool it. I would usually cook it a bit longer, but because it's still going to continue cooking, and again when I reheat it, then I believe this is good. I'm going to remove it from the heat. I'm going to set up my station to build the burritos, and then I'll bring you guys along for that. Okay, to assemble the breakfast burritos, I'm going to start with about a 1/4 cup of cheese in the center of each wrap. Now we're going to add the eggs, divided between the 5 wraps. You want to make sure that all the stuff that you're putting in goes in like an oval in the center of the wrap. So when it comes time to close it, it should be easier. Now here I have the onions and mushrooms that we prepped earlier. We're going to add some of that to each of them as well. So we have quite a few egg dishes, but they're all having different variation of vegetables and cheeses. So we're going to still have variety. Okay. I'm trying to follow the instructions here so we can get the best wrap on it. So it says when you're ready to roll, turn the tortilla so the long side of the filling pile is facing you. So like this. Then fold the short ends of the tortilla over the filling. Like that. So I think what we're going to do now is flip it. I'm going to turn this over. And then it helps to push the stuff in. Like that. Now, I have here a prepared sheet with parchment paper. We're going to put it seam side down. And we're going to let it freeze like that. Once it is frozen, I'm going to wrap it up. And we're going to put it into the freezer for a longer term storage. This can now go to the freezer, and before I want to eat it, the day before I would remove it from the freezer, put it in the fridge, and you can reheat it in a microwave, you can reheat it in an Instant Pot, you can reheat it in the oven. I'm gonna try reheating it in a skillet and see what happens. Gonna get a little bit of a crispy outside. I think I would enjoy that. Next up, we're gonna make some protein balls. We're gonna start off with 1 cup of, we're gonna do the quick 1-minute cooking rolled oats, because this won't be cooked or baked. So I can't use the one that I used earlier. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, a 1/2 cup of peanut butter, a 1/4 cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of milk, so the recipe calls for 75 grams of protein powder. Now the protein powder that I have, each scoop is about 30. So I'm going to do a heaping scoop of it. We're going to mix this together and then we'll add some chocolate chips. Okay, now that this is done, we're going to form them into bowls, and this I'm going to store it in the fridge. And it's a very easy grab and go breakfast. Okay, I have a container here that I'm going to storage these protein bowls in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cookie scoop. I'm taking a cookie scoop and I'm going to form them into bowls. Now I like to press them together a little bit so that they hold up nicer and they don't fall apart as you're eating it. Now, I didn't mention this before, but I have alluded to it, but most of these recipes I actually halved. The only thing I made a full recipe was the zucchini muffins and the garlic butter coming up. And these energy bowls are something that we have had in the past and we enjoyed it a lot, so I made it again. And I've tasted the overnight oats. It's not my favorite, not my go-to. This I will now cover and it can go into the fridge. Now I'm taking you back to earlier this day when I started off all the cooking, I started off with this. I took some foil. I actually doubled it up. I did 2 layers of foil. I took a whole head of garlic and I cut off the top until I was able to see all of the cloves of garlic. I want them all exposed. Next, I'm going to drizzle some olive oil and make sure that they get in all the crevices and cracks between the cloves of garlic. And we're going to close this up, make a nice tight wall around it, and we're going to let this roast. This is going to go in a 400-degree oven for 40 minutes. We're going to have delicious roasted garlic. And last but certainly not least, we're going to make our garlic butter. So we're going to start off with a container of heavy whipping cream. We're going to pour it in. And we're going to mix this until it starts forming the butter. As this mixes, it will go through a few stages. First, it'll look like a whipped cream. It'll become nice and whipped. And then it'll go past that and the fat will start separating. And that fat is what is going to become the butter. And I'm going to have buttermilk left on the side. Okay, this is done. We're going to move over to the sink now and I'll show you how we're going to finish this off. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get this off of the beaters. And I'm going to collect all of the butter that's in the bowl. Because it's kind of chunky. I'm going to squeeze the most of this milk out of the butter. Now, to ensure the longest lasting butter that stays fresh, you want to rinse it with cold water. And we're going to continue squeezing under the water until the water runs clear. Okay, to flavor this, I have here the garlic that we roasted earlier today. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to squeeze all of the garlic out of here. Smells delicious. I'm so excited for this. I've been wanting to make butter for a long time. Recently my family started loving garlic butter, so I'm so excited to have this. I'm going to add some sea salt. And some minced up parsley as well. And I'm just going to knead it into the butter until it's evenly distributed. This looks good. So now I got myself here a butter crock. So the butter goes in here. Gonna fill it up. Whatever doesn't fit is gonna go into the fridge for a later time. Now the cool thing about a butter crock is that it stays out on the counter. So the butter is always room temperature, always ready to be used. And the way to ensure that it stays fresh is that you take the bowl of the butter crock. There's a little line over here. We're going to put some water, fill that mark. I'm going to use some bottled water. Then you just take this part, you flip it over, and the water will create a seal on it, and so it stays fresh. And this will stay out on the counter. This I'm going to put away. And guys, with this, our breakfast meal prep is finished. Let me clean up a little bit, and let me show you all what we accomplished today. Hey guys, here we have everything that we have made today. So we're going to start off over here. This is our breakfast casserole. Just eggs with a bunch of vegetables and cheese, and we baked it. I'm going to cut it into, I think, 4 or 6 pieces, and I'm going to freeze it individually so it is easier to use when we want to eat it. This is our tater tot casserole, which I flash froze it. I'm going to cover it with a saran wrap now, then a foil, and this will go into the freezer until we're ready to use it. This is full with garlic butter, and we also got this little thing of garlic butter as well. Here we got our overnight oats with the cream that will go on top. We got our energy bowls, our breakfast burritos, full of yummy vegetables as well, and we have our zucchini muffins. And we just tasted it, and it is delicious. The cinnamon in there gives it such a good kick, and it's really, really good. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, then go ahead and like the video. And I'll put some videos right up here that you can watch between now and next time. And I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button as well, so you can follow along as we do more of these full day of baking and cooking, and we do work in our garden. So see you next time.